Do you know how Jeff Bezos paid less than 1% in taxes on his billions of dollars of income? Do you know how you can take out money from real estate while paying zero taxes? And do you know how you can make 50,000 grow to 90,000 in 5 years and pay zero taxes on it? If yes, this video is for you. And before we start, my name is Raghav. I am the mortgage specialist and co-founder of 7 Lending, where we come up with innovative solutions and alternate mortgage options for you and help you invest in private mortgages. So let's jump right in. For today's video, I'll cover 3 topics. The first is how high income earners pay minimal or low taxes. People like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and others actually pay less of a tax percentage than you and I. Well, that is surprising. Number 2, what is the difference between being taxed as an employee in a job versus someone who has a business or self-employed? Number 3, and this is the main part, I will show you true strategies, whether you're self-employed or employed, wherein you can make investments and start investing and actually save on taxes. So stay tuned. So firstly, how do people, billionaires and these high income earners pay minimal taxes? Well, in a quick report done by ProRepublica, and I'll put the link here in the description, you can see that a lot of these successful people, whether it's Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, etc., pay really low percentage of an income tax based on the income they make. So how does that work? Well, it's simple. So let me walk you through an example scenario. So someone like Elon Musk, whose net worth is literally billions of dollars, they don't, like you and I, withdraw money from their company or sell off their shares to make money. What they actually do as part of their compensation is they get stock options. Now, think about this. Stocks in Teslas are worth huge amounts of money. So if they are supposed to take, let's say, withdrawals of $100 million annually, they will not do it as a salary or as a dividend. Typically, majority of this would be stock options. What they do with this is they take that 100 million of stock options to their bank or a financial institution, and instead of withdrawing it or taking dividends, they get a loan against it. Because they have not sold off their asset, the loan they get is tax deductible and they do not pay any income tax. They might pay a lower interest rate on their loan, could be 6%, 7%, 8%, but that is nothing compared to the income tax they might have paid on the full realized gain. So that is the strategy they use. So following up on that, do you know Jeff Bezos avoided federal income taxes in 2007 and 11 because he reported investment losses that were greater than his salary? And as a surprise, his salary for decades in Amazon was only $80,000. So these guys are smart, but there are principles we can learn from them and take advantages. So as we know, their typical model is not applicable to us. We don't get $100 billion stock options, packages, stuff like that. But I want to talk to you about things we can do to save taxes and make investments. But before I jump into that, I want to maybe separate between how you get taxed as in someone who's employed versus someone who's self-employed and comparing that to capital gains. So if you are employed, the first thing we have to know is we get a gross income from our company, and out of the income, we pay our taxes. So it could be that we get 100,000, out of which we get taxes, and we're left with 70-some thousand, which we use for our day-to-day expenses. So the money we get to spend is after deduction of all the expenses for CPP, EI, etc., the taxes, and then we do our personal expenses. While if you're a business owner or you're self-employed, you get your gross income, but you get to write off your expenses and make deductions on this income. And finally, what you're left with is what you pay taxes on. So the big difference here is an employee or someone who has a job gets his income after taxes, while someone who's self-employed, she gets to expense a lot of things, and whatever is left, she gets to pay taxes on that. Now I'll show you how that makes a difference. So let's compare 2 scenarios. Someone who is an employee and makes 100,000 in their job versus someone who has their own business and makes a gross income of $100,000. Now, in scenario 1, where you have a salary or you're employed, out of 100,000 gross income, you'll typically have these deductions, which will be approximately $25,000 a year. Now, do note, the numbers I am sharing are based on you residing in BC, and I have used the Wealth Simple online calculator. A link for it is also there in the description. You can double check the numbers and make sure it is accurate. So if you have a 100,000 job, you're approximately paying 25% of that in federal income tax, provincial tax, CPP, etc. And out of the $75,000 you have left, you'll use it towards your expenses, your phone bills, cars, so on and so forth. However, if you are self-employed, you get the magic word, which is expenses and write-offs. So as someone who's self-employed, assuming it can be used for your business, you get to write off portions of your car expense, fuel expense, phone bill, eating out, meeting people, traveling, so on and so forth. So if I have to even, let's say, go to Dubai to attend a business meeting and hire some employees there, and I use some part of that to do business, some part of that to do travel, you can actually write that off. Of course, check with your accountant. I'm not a CPA here, but we get to write off so many expenses which someone who is an employee does not get to. So if I have $100,000 as gross income in my business, I will write down portion of maybe the house rent if I am renting, which is used for a home office. I can write off my phone bills, car bills, gas, so on and so forth. So if someone does it right, out of their gross income of 100,000, they will write down a lot of the expenses and show a net income of maybe 50,000 a year. And on that 50,000, the total tax they'll have to pay is approximately 11,461. So that is almost less than half the tax you would pay if you were employed. So of course, this is a really good tool if you are self-employed. So the next scenario I want to compare that with is if you're in a salary job and you're a high income earner, say making about 150,000 per year, versus if your income was divided between capital gains and regular income. Now let's go through the scenario. If you do make 150,000 in your IT job, sales job, or any kind of other employment, you'll roughly net around $106,000 a year, and you're paying about 44,000 in various taxes in BC. Having said that, if you had to make that same amount of income as a gross income plus capital gains, then you are also taxed differently. So capital gains a lot of times is income from your investments and the gains you make by selling them, etc. Now, if you had to make that 150,000, out of which 50,000 is coming from your job or employment, and 100,000 out of it is capital gains, and I have assumed they're realized after June of 2024, then here's the tax difference. You will actually pay 20,000 less taxes approximately just by getting more income from capital gains. What does this tell you? There are strategies by being smart about your money and paying less taxes. Now, I understand a lot of you are employed, a lot of you have different situations, but in my next slide, I want to talk to you about two strategies a lot of us can use to make investments, to grow wealth, but also pay less taxes on it and legally. So, the number one topic I'll talk about is investing in cash flow real estate. And the second one I'll talk about is investing in private lending using TFSA or RSPs. So let's talk about the first one is how do I build wealth and pay less taxes by investing in cash flowing real estate. So for this example, I will show you a scenario of a property I found online, which was listed as of today in Calgary, and I'll walk you through the numbers. So I found this property in Calgary. It was listed for around $490. I talked to the realtor, I called them a few hours ago, and I know that this is something you can buy for just almost $500,000. Now upstairs, there were 3 bedroom and 1 bathroom, and downstairs, there was 2 bedroom and a bath. Market rent for a property like this conservatively is $3,500. But let's go through the numbers. So if you were to buy this for $500,000, you will make 20% down, which is $100,000. You will have other expenses like closing costs, but I've also factored in $20,000 for improvements. Note, this is a minimal amount for improvements because I just want to find properties where I do basic touch-ups like some flooring, washroom upgrades, some blinds, etc., which will add value to the property and they don't cost me a lot. I have also factored in for a 3-month buffer because let's say it takes me 3 months to rent out the property and for miscellaneous things. Now, the total cash I need to make an investment like this is approximately $130,000. With the current mortgage rates, and I went a bit conservative, if I put 20% down on a $500,000 property, my monthly mortgage payment will be about $2,188. Now, if I add various costs like property manager, property tax, home insurance, and other miscellaneous, my total expenses on a property like this are $3,030. That means if I take $3,030 out of my monthly rent of $3,500, every month I'm almost making $470 in my bank account or in hand. The best thing about investing in Alberta is there's not as many rental restrictions. So I'm accounting for higher rents in the second and third year. Of course, it will depend on situation to situation. Now, in the second year, let's assume your rent increases from 3,500 to 3,750, and in the third year, let's assume it goes to 3,900. So you're going from almost $500 a month in hand to $700 a month in hand plus eight. Then in the third year, almost $900 a month in hand, which is great. But that is not it. The magic comes in 3 years. So in 3 years, a property which you bought for $500,000 is worth approximately $625,000. How I got to this number is I did a 5 to 6% compounded growth year on year, and I assumed the market value of the property in the first year was $530,000 after renovations. Now, what a lot of people call this is also the BRRRR strategy or the refinance strategy, where after 3 years, if the value is 625,000 or 630, somewhere in that range, you can refinance up to 80% of the property value and net 122,000 approximately in hand. Now, the best part is when you refinance your mortgage, you do not pay any tax on the money you get as a refinance because it is a debt. Of course, you do make monthly payments on it, but now you have 102,000 in your hand, tax-free, which you can use for other investments and use the money to make more money, aka good debt. So that was the strategy number one, which is what a lot of investors have used, is to use good debt out of properties, out of assets, and invest it in other assets so they don't pay taxes. Now, you can do this in a bigger scale, but this is a smaller example to show you how it works. Now, option number two, you may not have that much amount of money available. So what do you use to grow your capital pool? Well, I am a big fan of private lending. Now, before I go into private lending, the best way to do this is use your TFSA on RRSPs so that you can maximize your tax strategies. If you don't know a lot about TFSA or RRSP, I'm making a separate video on that, so make sure you watch it. But if you do make an investment in TFSA, let's say you have 50 to 60,000 contributed to your TFSAs, you can invest it in private mortgages, which is secured against real estate. Now, these are registered on the title of the property, and in the current market, you can make between 10 to 13% per year. Now, if you put in 50,000 using your TFSAs, you do not pay any tax on the gain. We're taking an average interest rate of 12%, compounded monthly for 5 years. Your investment is worth almost $90,000 in 5 years. So you gain 40,000 and you pay no taxes on it. That is the magic of compound growth. And the best part, this is a significantly passive way of growing your wealth without being involved in day to day. So if you want to know about that option, check out the link in description. But I hope this video helped you. And if you have any questions, need help, make sure you contact us. And if you like this, do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you soon.